It's 1576. France is at peace after the Edict of Beaulieu, but the country is more divided than ever. Catholics are outraged at the unprecedented concessions granted to the Protestants. Many have lost faith in their king, whom they view as a weakling, unable or unwilling to defend them. The last straw, as they see it, is the granting of the governorship of Picardy to Conde. This is obviously a Huguenot plot to link up with the Calvinist Dutch rebels, therefore it must be stopped at all costs. To this end, the Catholics set up a powerful regional league to defend themselves from Protestant encroachment. Seemingly overnight, a series of similar Catholic leagues are formed all over the east, north and centre of the country. The king at first is taken by surprise, but then quickly decides to preempt trouble by seizing the initiative. For this reason, Henry organises an Estates Générales at Blois, but almost all the delegates who arrive are Catholic. Initially, the king proposes reforms, however all the delegates want to hear about is war. Therefore, Henry changes his tone and confesses that he himself would like to attain better terms, but war is a costly matter and he will need money. At this point, the Estate lets him down, offering only a paltry sum for the war. When the offensive starts in 1577, Henry has barely enough money for 4 months. Consequently, after a few minor sieges, the offensive staggers to a halt. Unable to take action, the king is forced to make peace with the Huguenots. The Peace of Bergerac is signed in September 1577, ushering in 7 years that will be almost free of war. But the absence of major actions does not mean an end to hostilities. Small-scale war is now endemic in France. Bands of soldiers in the hire of particular lords roam the countryside, ambushing and skirmishing with opposing bands, laying waste to the meagre belongings of the commoners left and right. Violent peasant revolts break out in the affected regions, with the peasants themselves forming war bands to attack the nobility. War, pestilence, and failed harvests bring France to its lowest point. Unperturbed by this, Alençon, who has since been promoted to Duke of Anjou, is still on a quest for personal glory. Eager to prove himself, he organises a small force and proceeds to invade the Low Countries. Once there, the Dutch rebels promise him everything, including the crown, the only condition being that he himself has to remove the Spanish. But Anjou is penniless, and he can't count on support from Henry or Catherine, who have been opposed to this project from the start. Undaunted, Anjou goes to England and proposes to Elizabeth I. But Elizabeth, who has dealt with much bigger men than Anjou, rejects him after a brief lead-up. Dejected and disabused, Anjou returns to France a broken man. Meanwhile, France reaches the boiling point once more. The 7th and shortest war breaks out in November 1579. The cause is the same as in the previous war. Conde tries to claim the governorship of Picardy, and the Catholics go out of their way to prevent this. Hostilities also break out in the south, but the war peters out after a few minor sieges. Most Protestants don't want a war, and will be content with the reaffirmation of their rights. Henry obliges, and guarantees those rights provided by the Edict of Beaulieu. Unsurprisingly, the Catholics are greatly displeased by this. The casual violence of a peaceful period simmers on for 4 more years, before things finally come to a head. Anjou dies on June the 10th, 1584. This means that unless Henry III produces an heir, the throne will fall to Henry of Navarre. Since the king is not interested in women, and longevity is also not on his side, a Calvinist king is almost a certainty now. Henry III tries to compromise by inviting Henry of Navarre to adopt Catholicism. When Navarre refuses, Henry of Guise feels compelled to act. Thus commences the longest and bloodiest episode of the conflict, the War of the Three Henrys. Catholic leagues all over France agree to unite under the leadership of the Guise. Realizing that it's now or never, Spain offers its full support. On the last day of 1584, in great secrecy, the Treaty of Joinville is signed between the Catholic League and Spain. The League promises to recognize the elderly Cardinal of Bourbon, Navarre's uncle, as the rightful heir to the throne. Additionally, the Guises promise to adopt the findings of the Council of Trent into law, and also to end France's alliance with the Ottomans. In return, Spain offers full financial and military support. Immediately, the League springs into action. Their forces suddenly seize control in the north, the east, and the centre of the country. The king's first reaction is to declare war, but he's dissuaded by Catherine, who advocates for negotiations instead. While the talks are going on, the Guises take steps to consolidate their power. In March 1585, they publish the Manifesto of Péronne. In the manifesto, they outline the grim future that would await Catholics if the state became Protestant. If nothing is done, atrocities will surely follow. Additionally, they recommend that the Estates Generales should meet 3 times a year, that taxes should be lowered, and that parallel to this, the war should be renewed. This appeal garners them even more support. Countless towns and cities side with the League, since they see it as the last chance to stop the Huguenot fanatics. Most notably, Paris sides with the League. While still nominally under the control of the king, in private most of the city and its officials have already sided with the Guises. A secretive organization of Catholic zealots, the Committee of the 16, named after the 16 districts of Paris, is set up around this time. The 16 infiltrate every major organization of the city, poised to take on the king whenever the opportunity should arise. Faced with these impossible odds, Henry III is forced to concede. In July 1585, the Treaty of Namur is concluded between the king and the League. The document strips Protestants of all rights and privileges granted to them since the start of the war. It also lays down strict laws against heresy, to be enforced by the League and paid for by the king. Furthermore, the Catholics too would receive a number of security towns where they could maintain a permanent army. Thus humiliated, Henry withdraws for a time, leaving political matters to his mother and the war to the League. Bolstered by Spanish silver, the Catholic League goes on the offensive in 1586. Small-scale sieges and skirmishes make up the initial actions. Henry of Navarre and the Protestants are taken by surprise and adopt a defensive position. They ask for help from the usual places: Queen Elizabeth and their longtime backers in Germany, Frederick III, Elector Palatine, and his son John Casimir. By 1587, a large army of Germans and Swiss is being raised in the Palatinate from money supplied by the English. Faced with foreign intervention, the king determines to take to the field. He puts together a large force and stations it in the Loire Valley. As his first move, Henry sends a sizable advance guard led by one of his favourites, the Duke of Joyouse, to engage the dwindling forces of Navarre. Navarre plans to sally from La Rochelle and move south where he can gather more men and await the arrival of the Germans. Joyeuse is determined to intercept him. He achieves this on the 20th of October 1587. Unable to retreat, Navarre offers him battle near the village of Coutras. The two forces are almost evenly matched, with Navarre having 4,000 infantry and 1,500 cavalry, while Joyeuse commands 5,000 infantry and 1,800 cavalry. Navarre anchors his left flank on the village and his right flank on a forested area. He arranges his cavalry in the centre and his infantry on the flanks. However, he also positions small groups of musketeers among his cavalry, whom he orders to fire only when the enemy is a few paces away. Additionally to tactical innovations, Navarre also implemented technological changes. His gendarmes no longer charge with a lance, instead they use a pair of pistols. This offers them an advantage in the countercharge, since they can now inflict damage first on those who charge them, then attack the stunned enemy with swords. Joyeuse falls into this trap with gusto. After a brief artillery bombardment that mostly affects the Catholics, Joyeuse orders his left flank to engage the Huguenot right. His cavalry charges its opposing number and achieves limited success. Meanwhile, his infantry engages the Protestant foot. The Huguenots stand firm and repulse this initial attack. Next, Joyeuse orders all his cavalry to charge. By the time they reach the Protestant lines, they become disorganized. They are met with devastating fire that in an instant decimates them and puts them to flight. Now the Protestants charge in with swords, cutting down anyone who isn't fast enough. In the end, 2,000 Catholics, including the commander himself, lie dead on the battlefield. The Protestants suffer minimal casualties. After obtaining this stunning victory, instead of mounting a pursuit, Navarre unremarkably decides to stay put and wait for the Germans. Indeed, the Germans were mobilizing throughout the summer of 1587. John Casimir decides to give the command to Fabian von Dohna. According to Navarre's orders, Dohna is to march straight to the Huguenot south to join up with him as soon as possible. But instead, Dohna makes an extended stop in Lorraine, pondering whether he should loot the duchy or not. After this, he marches his force due northwest towards Paris. While the king remains stationary with the main force, Henry of Guise is sent with a scant force to stop the 7,000 Germans, 12,000 Swiss, and 2,000 French in the expedition. Remarkably, he manages to do this. On the 26th of October 1587, he falls on the German camp in a daring night attack. This skirmish doesn't achieve much, but it does demoralize an already confused enemy. Soon enough, the Swiss are paid off, leaving the Germans to stand alone. Nonetheless, Dohna pushes on all the way to the town of Auneau. He settles into the town and begins to plan his next move. Unbeknownst to him, Henry of Guise hid musketeers within the town, while he himself lays an ambush outside the walls. On the 24th of November, as Dohna prepares to leave the town, Guise pounces on him. The Germans are routed and barely manage to regroup. Seeing that the Duke of Guise is just days away from an absolute victory, the king decides to intervene. He bribes the Germans to leave, promising them safe passage, hoping that this way he can minimize Guise's contribution. Having dealt with this problem, Henry III returns to Paris. But as the news of Guise's stunning victory and the pitiful defeat of his favourite reaches the city, Henry discovers that his popularity among Parisians is close to zero. Worst of all, the Duke of Guise demands the governorship of Normandy in return for his services. Henry III deems this excessive, as he considers the Guise already powerful enough. To stave off trouble, the king banishes the Duke from Paris. Little does he know that a terrific plot is already being hatched against him.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, it helps with the algorithm. Check out my Patreon if you want to help me on this journey. Links down below.